Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of learning motion graphics using Adobe After Effects. Today you are going to learn how to pre-compose your composition. Also, we are going to play with using keyframes and we are going to create a simple animation with keyframes. Now, one of the beauty of Adobe After Effects is the fact that you can create something out of nothing. So today we are going to put that to test and you are going to see what we'll be creating from nothing. All that we are going to be making use of is the Adobe After Effects tools that you can see over here. So we are going to get started now. We are assuming that we have an agency representative who wants us to create a profile rating for them. And now we are going to be showing a lot of things about them that has to do with their speed, accuracy, their skill, and so on and so forth. So we need to create a motion design that will represent all of this. Okay, so now let's get started. What I'm going to do first is to create a new composition by clicking on this new composition window that you can see here. All right, so now I'm going to give our new composition a name and I'm going to call it agency rating. Okay, then also I'm going to change the basic settings and make sure that I have HDV 1080-25 selected. You could also change your presets to be HDTV 1080-25. It depends on what you want to use. If you have recorded from a device that has a DVC Pro HD 720 29.9 frames per second, then you should choose from this preset because it will help you to make your output a better quality. Okay, so for the purpose of this class, I'm going to use HDV 1080-25. All right, so now for the duration, I'm going to leave it at 30 seconds. So if at any point in the design I want to increase it, I'll just go to change the composition settings again to either increase or decrease. All right, so now I'm going to press OK. Okay, so now what I also want to do quickly before we get started is to change the workspace and make sure that we are using the standard workspace that you can see over here. So if in your Adobe After Effects you cannot see the workspace options from here, you can go to window and then you can go to workspace to choose standard. The first thing we want to do is to learn how to create pre-composition. Now, what's a pre-composition? A pre-composition is also a composition, but a composition inside a composition. Now, what I'm trying to say is a child to parent composition. So you have a main composition, for example, the agency rating composition we have created here. Then if you have another composition that resides in this composition that we have now, then that's a pre-composed layer or a precomposition. So now you will see quickly what a precomposition is and how to achieve a precomposed layer. So now the first thing I want to do, because we want to rate an agency and we want to create a motion design that will help us rate this agency. So now I want to quickly create a solid layer and I'll have to go to the layers menu that you can see here, then click on new and then solid. Okay, so I want to make sure that the width of this solid is about third of the screen. So I'm going to divide by 3 to get a third of the width we already have now. So I'm going to press the slash on the keyboard and 3. Okay, so I'll click out. Don't press enter and don't press OK. So I'll click out on the screen. So now I have 480. Now for the height, I'm going to set it to be 100. Okay, so this is what I want it to be. And then for the color, I'm going to leave it at this color for now, but we are going to change it later. All right, then for the solid name, if you want to change the solid name, you can change it, but for the purpose of this class, we don't need to give this solid a name. So I'm going to press OK. All right, so this is what I have achieved now. So let me just move it somewhere around here. The next thing I want to do is to create a text layer also. So I'll go to the tools panel, then click on text tool, and then I'm going to click on the screen to type. So I'm going to type skill. Then I'll click on the selection tool again. Now I've created a text layer, and you can see we already have a solid layer and a text layer. Okay, so I'm going to I think I'm okay with the font type that I have here and the font weight, but I'm going to change the font size a little bit to make sure it's almost the same height with the solid that I have created. Okay, so I think it's okay now at about 72 pixels. Then I'll press enter, and also reposition the text layer to somewhere around here. If you want to quickly reposition your layers, you can go to window, then make sure that the align panel is active. All right, so now this is the align panel. It's now active down here. So if you select the text layer and the solid layer, then you can press the align vertically uh, option to align the text and the solid layer. Okay, so now it's well aligned. Now we want to see how pre-composition works. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is to select the text layer and then select the solid layer too. You can select from within the composition area. Okay, so now that I have both selected, I want to pre-compose. So to pre-compose, you have to go to the layer menu and then click on pre-compose, or you can use the shortcut you can see now, which is Shift Command C on the Mac keyboard, or you can use Shift Control C on the Windows keyboard. So if I click now, the option that you can see now will help me to create the settings for the pre-composed layer that I want to have. So now it is asking for us to change the name of this pre-composition. Okay, so I'm going to call the name of the pre-composed layer the name of the text we have here, so it doesn't confuse us. So I'm going to type skill. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to also make sure that this option is selected. You can see by default this other option at the top here is not active, so we have this option active. The reason why this option is active is if you are pre-composing more than a layer, then this is the option that will be active by default. But if you are pre-composing just one single layer, this option will be active also. All right, so now the other thing that you should also note is if you are creating a pre-composition, it will ask you if you want to have the same length with the layers that you are bringing into the new composition. So the length of these layers now is the 30 seconds that I have created earlier. So if you want to have it, you can select this, and if you don't mind, just leave it the way it is. Then the open new composition, leave it the way it is. Okay, so now press OK. Now this is what I'm saying. You can see now that we already have a composition inside our main composition, which is the agency rating. Now, how do you know that this is a composition in itself? If you double click to open it, you can see that it is also opened, or it is also showing the way our agency rating composition is showing. Okay, but the only difference now is that the skill composition that is over here is placed inside agency rating. So this is what pre-composing in After Effects is all about. So now the usefulness of this pre-composition is because you want to have multiple layers that are that have the same, let's say, the same settings or the same adjustments, or layers that have the same properties, or maybe layers that you just want to make sure they are identical, they work the same way, and just anything that will make them the same. That's the reason why you want to pre-compose a layer and then duplicate multiple times. Now that we already have this skill composition as a pre-composed layer in agency rating, we need to start working from here. So now if you double click now, it will open here, or you can go to the composition that you've already opened, and then you can see the layers within the skill pre-composition that we already have. So now we want to work with this text and this solid, and this is the only thing we need for now. So what we want to do is to hide this text on the left side and then make it revealed on the right side. So to do that, I'm first going to work on the screen size that we have here, because as you can see now, all of this empty space is not needed. So I'm going to quickly work on it to make sure that I remove this empty space that you can see now. So to do that, I'll make sure that I'm still under the skill composition that is here. Then I'll go to the composition menu, and then I'll click on composition settings and not new composition again, because we already have the composition. So I'm going to click on composition settings, and then I would adjust the height of the composition. So if I adjust the height of this composition, it will help us remove all this unneeded space. Okay, I'm going to quickly set this to about 200 to about 110. Okay, so now I'm okay with what I have now, but I'll click on the layers within this composition to bring them to the visible area of the screen, just like this. Now, the next thing I want to do is to set keyframe for the skill text layer. So on the first frame, as we are here on the first frame, make sure the blue line is on the first frame. Now open up the position properties of the skill text layer. So how do you do this? You can click the arrow on the left side of skill text, and then it will show you the properties of the text layer. Okay, and now we already know the property of the skill text layer that we want to work with, so which is the position. So now I'm going to press P on the keyboard to quickly jump to the position property of the skill text layer. Okay, so now I'm going to set the first keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch toggle that you can see here, and it will set the first keyframe. Then I'll move forward 10 frames. Okay, so how do I achieve that? You can press the command key on the keyboard or control key on the Windows keyboard, then press the right arrow key 10 times. Okay, so I'm on the 10th frame now. All right, or you can just come to the time settings that you can see here, click on it, and then you can adjust the time to whatever you want and press enter. So I want 10 frames. Okay, and then I'm going to press enter. So now I'm going to set the second keyframe. All right, then I will go back to the first keyframe, and I'm going to put the text layer into motion on the first keyframe. Now what we want to achieve is immediately the screen starts playing, we want the text layer to be invisible at first, and then on the last keyframe we want it to become visible. So I'm going to hide the text now by moving it backwards like this. All right, now as you have seen that what I have just done did not hide the skill text layer. Now we need to do something to hide this text layer. So what I'm going to do is to create a track mat. So a track mat will help us to hide and unhide a layer depending on how you want to put the layer into motion. So now let's see how it works. So what I'm going to do is to duplicate this yellow solid layer that we have now, and I'm going to turn off one of it so that we don't see it now. So I'm going to make use of this one that is visible right now. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that I put the skill text where I want it to stop when it's being put in motion. So I'll put it on the second keyframe. This is where I want it to stop. Now I'll try and move this solid layer. Remember, this is not the other solid layer that we have turned off, because we need this other one that we have turned off. So the function of this solid layer is to help us hide this text. So from where the text layer starts from, I'm going to move this solid layer close to it. Okay, so now I'm going to also make sure that this yellow solid is on top of the text layer, just this way. Now I'm going to make sure that this toggle switches is showing me the track mat that you can see here right now. So if you cannot see the track mat column, make sure that you click on toggle switches modes to reveal it. All right, so now I'm going to click on the none drop down that you can see here under the track mat, and then I'm going to choose alpha inverted mat. All right, So now you can see that the solid layer is hidden, but the text is not hidden. Now the solid layer is active on the screen, but we cannot see it because the track matte is now making use of it. So now, what I'm going to do is to select the skill text layer, then click to move to the first keyframe, and now you can see that the skill text layer is hidden. Okay, so now the function of the track matte is to hide and to unhide any layer that you put under it or outside of it. All right, so if I try to play back now, you can see what just happened to the skill text layer. It becomes hidden under the solid layer that we have turned off with the use of the track matte, and it becomes visible outside of the solid layer that we use as the track matte. So I'm going to quickly rename the solid layer now and call it reveal text. So if you have the track matte solid layer selected, press enter on the keyboard to rename it and then change it to reveal text or any name you want. I'm going to press enter. All right. So now I'm also going to work on the solid layer, the yellow solid layer that we have turned off here. I'm going to turn it on now. All right. So now I'm going to set a mask to also reveal and to hide this solid layer. Okay. So what I'm going to do is to go to the rectangle tool option in the tools panel. Then I'm going to double click to create an automatic mask that surrounds this solid layer that you can see now. All right. So you can also click to create the mask as you want it, but meanwhile you are not going to get an accurate mask that surrounds the solid layer. All right. So I'm going to undo now, and I'm going to make sure that I double click on the rectangle tool to create an automatic mask. So I'm going to double click now, and you can see that a mask has been created. So you can change the color of the mask if it's the same with your layer. So I'm going to quickly change it so it becomes more visible. So let's use the blue color for the mask. All right, so that's our mask. So now what I'm going to do is to also put the mask that I've just created into motion. So I'm going to go to the first keyframe of our text layer, and then I'm going to open up the mask properties for this solid layer, and then I'll click the stopwatch toggle for mask paths. This is the mask path. All of the blue lines that you can see now and the points that you can see over here, that's the mask path. So I'm going to click to toggle it on, and it will set the first keyframe for us, and then I'll jump to the second keyframe for our skill text layer, and then I'm going to set the second keyframe for the yellow solid that we already have here. All right, so I'll click now to set the second keyframe. All right, so what I want to achieve is that on the first keyframe where the skill text is hidden, we also want to make hidden the solid layer that you can see now. All right, so I'm going to click on the solid layer and make sure I select just these 2 points, not the other points here, because I don't want the position here to move. So I'll click on this point, then click on this point also. Then I will press shift on the keyboard, then the right arrow key to move 10 pixels at a time. If you don't press the shift key, you will be moving 1 pixel at a time, and that will take time. So I'm going to press the shift and press the right arrow key at the same time. All right, so when I'm somewhere around here, I'll be fine when I can't see anything on the screen again. So remember, we are still on the first keyframe. Everything I have done is on the first keyframe. Okay, so now if I move to the second keyframe, now see we have a full solid layer that we created. Okay, so now if I try to play back, so this is what we have achieved, and this is exactly what we want. All right, so now I'm going to quickly change the color of this solid layer. So I'll go back to layer menu and then click on solid settings, not new solid anymore, because this will help you create a new solid. So I'll click on solid settings. Okay, and I'm going to change the color now to somewhere around here. Okay, and I'll press OK, and then I'm going to click on new. All right, So we have achieved what we want here. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the agency rating composition and then duplicate this layer that I have here. So now I'm going to go to edit, then duplicate. Okay, so I have this composition duplicated, this pre-composed layer duplicated. Now, what I want to do is to press shift and move it down a little bit. Yeah, just like this. And then I want to change the properties and also the content of this pre-composed layer. But meanwhile, if you notice something, if I click on this new composition that I've just duplicated, the pre-composed layer that I've duplicated, it will open the same pre-composed layer that I have before, which is still this one. Okay. Now, if I also click on this, it will also open the same pre-composed composition. All right. So now, how do we go about this so that the duplicate that we have here is going to open separately and not the same composition that we have here, because we need almost the same thing inside this pre-composed layer as the first pre-composed layer. So now, to go around that, we are going to head over to the project panel and make sure that the name of the composition is selected, and then I'm going to duplicate by going to edit, duplicate. All right, so now you can see that this is giving us skill 2. All right, so now I'm going to replace this composition that I have now with the second one that I have here. So to do that, you press option on the Mac keyboard or alt on the Windows keyboard, then click and drag to drop into the other layer that we have here. So now if I click on this, it will open the pre-composed composition we have earlier. And if I also click on this, it will open a separate pre-composed composition. So I'm going back to the agency rating now, and I'm going to quickly change the name of this composition and then change it to speed. All right. So now if you have the name of the composition selected under the project panel, press enter to rename, and then I'm going to change it to speed. Okay, so I'll go into the speed composition by double clicking here or double clicking on it here, and now I can change the text also to speed. All right, so now I'll click on the selection tool again, and I'm going to change the color of this solid layer to something different. So I'll click now and then pick from somewhere around here. All right, I'll press OK and then new. Okay, so I'll go to the beginning of the timeline and then play back. All right, so it's perfect. Let's go to the main composition again. Yeah, everything is perfect. But what I want is, I don't want the scale and the speed solid layer to be the same. So I want to try and reduce the speed solid layer or increase it a little bit to make sure it's longer than the scale solid that we have here. So I'll go back to the speed composition, then make sure that the solid layer is selected. I'm going to adjust the keyframe for the solid layer that I've created. I will press U on the keyboard to reveal the keyframes that I have set for this layer. Okay, so these are the keyframes. So what I'm going to do is go to the last keyframe, which is the second keyframe here, and then select the 2 points over here to reduce the length of the solid layer. Okay, so I'm going to press shift and right arrow key to reduce it a little bit. Now if you come to the agency composition, so this is the result that we have now. So I'm also going to duplicate the speed pre-composed layer and then go to the project panel and also duplicate it also, and then I am going to click hold option or alt on the Windows keyboard and then drag and drop into the new layer that I have just created. Now I'm going to also click on this layer, press enter on the keyboard, change the name. So I'm going to change it to accuracy, then press enter. All right, so I'll go to the accuracy composition now, and I'm going to change the text to accuracy. All right, then I'll click the selection tool to escape from the typing. So let me quickly reduce the length of the solid by selecting these 2 points, then move it backwards. All right. So now let's go back and see what we already have. Okay. So now I'm going to click and shift this downward a little bit. Okay. So now I'm going to play back. Okay. So let's go to the accuracy composition again and make a little adjustment. You can see that the accuracy text is not fully hidden. So what I'm going to do is to go to the keyframe where it starts from, and then I'm going to adjust the position property to make sure that it is completely hidden. So now let's play back. All right. So the next thing I also want to do is to duplicate the accuracy pre-composed layer again. Then I'm going to duplicate the accuracy composition under project panel, and then I'm going to press enter to rename it. I'll change it to competency. Okay, so I'll press enter. All right. So now I'm going to click on the competency composition and then drag to replace accuracy. Then I'll double click to open the composition and then change the text for accuracy to competency. All right. So now I'm going to increase the solid layer length a little bit by going to the last keyframe here. Then I'm going to select the solid layer, and then I'm going to click on these 2 points, then move it forward just a little bit. Now let's go to the first keyframe to make sure that the text is completely hidden, and then adjust the position property. All right. So I'll go back to the agency rating composition now, then play back. Okay. So now that I have the competency on top of accuracy layer, I'm going to press shift and down arrow key on the keyboard to reposition. All right. So let's just quickly add one more by duplicating the competency composition, then duplicate it here also, and then I'm going to select the second layer, and then I'll click, drag, then press option or alt on the keyboard, and I'm going to drop it on this other one. Now I'm also going to the competency composition that I have under project, and then press enter to change it. So now I'm going to change it to happy customers. Then I'll press enter. Okay. So now I'll go to the happy customers. So let me change the competency to, press enter, then change to happy customers. All right. So now I'll click on the happy customers pre-composed layer, and then I'm going to change the text by double clicking on it. Then I'll happy. All right. So now I'll go to the first keyframe to make sure that the text is completely hidden, and I'm going to adjust the position property. All right. So now you can see that the solid layer we use to hide the text is not long enough. So I'm going to select the solid layer, and then I'm going to adjust on this side of the solid by going to the scale property of the solid layer, and then I'm going to unlock. Then I'm going to adjust the X property only to increase it. All right. So let me move it to the left. Now, if I go to the second keyframe of the text where it is fully revealed, all right. So this is what we have. So let's play back now and see what it looks like. So I'm going to reposition the happy customers also. All right. So now I'm going to play back. All right. So one more thing that we have to do, I'm going to change the color of all of this except for the scale and the speed, because I want the three that is over here to have different colors. So I'm going to start with happy customers. All right. Then I'm going to first make sure that the length of this solid layer is a little bit increased. So I'll click on it, and then I'm going to click on these 2 points by holding shift, then I'll press shift and then the left arrow key to increase it a little bit. All right, so I want to change the color now. I'll go to the layer menu, then go to solid settings, and then click on the color, and then I'm going to change to, let's say, something like this, then press OK. All right, then I'll go to competency, and I'm going to change the color also by selecting the layer first, and then go to layer menu and then solid settings. And now I'm going to click on the color and then change to something around here. Press OK. All right, then let me see if we still have. Okay, so I'm going to change for accuracy also. So let me select the solid layer first, then go to layer menu, then solid settings, and I'm going to change the color to pick from, let's say, here. Press OK, then new. All right, so now I'll go back to the main composition, and this is the result of what we have. All right, so now I want to make sure that all of these 4 layers, 5 layers that we have is well aligned on the screen. So I'm going to select the 4 by pressing Command A on the keyboard or Control A on Windows keyboard to select it all, and then I'm going to pre-compose again. So now this is like a pre-composition in a pre-composition and in a composition. So now, since I have selected all the 5 layers, I'll go to layer, and then I'm going to click on pre-compose. And at this time, I'm going to change the name to, let's say, rating. All right, so I'll press OK. So now I have a single composition. Okay, so now that I have a single composition, I'll go inside the composition to see the other layers that I already have, and I'm going to make sure that I push it up a little bit. So I'll select the 5, then press shift and the up arrow key to try and center what I already have. Okay, so let's assume this is the center. Now go to the main composition, and this is what we have now. So now inside the rating composition, I want to make sure that all of these layers are not displayed at the same time, as you can see now. So what I want to do is to offset each of these layers to make sure that after about 5 frames, the other ones are displayed. So to achieve this, I'm going to press, now that I'm on the first keyframe, I'm going to press the command key on the keyboard or control key on Windows keyboard, and I'm going to move forward 5 frames by pressing the right arrow key. Okay, so this is 5 frames. So I'm going to align the second one here, which is competency, to the line, the blue line that you can see now. So make sure that the competency layer is selected, then press the square bracket on the keyboard. So the square bracket is the key that is close to letter P on the keyboard. So press it and it will align. Okay, so at this point, I'm also going to move 5 keyframes forward by pressing Command key and the right arrow key, or Control and the right arrow key on the Windows keyboard to go 5 frames forward. Okay, so I'm going to also select the other layer, which is the accuracy layer, and then press the square bracket key on the keyboard, which is close to the letter P key. All right, so I'm going to do the same for the other 2 by going 5 keyframes forward. Then I'm going to align this also, then go 5 keyframes forward, then align the last one, so that if I play back now, the result is going to look like this. All right, so everything is not revealed at the same time. Let's play back again. So this is what we have achieved now. Now, one more thing that I want to show you before we come to the end of this class. Now, you want to know how to split or slice a layer. So at this point, let me play back again. At this point, the duration or the length of this composition is 30 seconds, and Presently, as you can see with what we have just created now, this is too long, okay? So I want this composition to stop at about 5 seconds, okay? So now at 5 seconds, let me just set the 5 seconds here. So I'm going to set this to 5, and then I'm going to change the 19 here to 00. So this is exactly 5 seconds, okay? So now at exactly 5 seconds, I want all of this, the playback of the composition to stop. So I want to slice all of the layers that we have here. To slice the layer, select the layer first, and then press Command Shift and then D, letter D on the keyboard. Or if you're on a Windows keyboard, you can press Control Shift and then letter D. It will slice a layer for you. So now what I want to do is to slice all of the 5 layers that I have here. So I'm going to select all at a time by pressing Command A or Control A on Windows keyboard, and I'm going to press Command Shift D or Control Shift D on Windows keyboard, and everything will be sliced. So now that I still have the rest part that is still selected, I don't have to click out because it will unselect all of them. I don't want it anymore. So thanks that I have it selected, I'm going to hit delete on the keyboard to remove them. All right, now that I've successfully sliced all of these layers, I don't want these empty parts anymore. Now, one more thing that you need to see is to reduce your composition duration to the content that you have created within After Effects. So now I'm going to trim the work area to make sure it stops around here. Okay. So now I'll click on the blue thick line that you can see here, then drag it to where my composition stops. Okay. So at this point, this is all that I want to have. So to expand the timeline, you can use the minus or plus key on the keyboard to minimize or to expand the timeline like I have just done now. All right. So now that I have this, okay, I'm going to right click on this work area bar that I have here to remove the rest part that I don't need anymore. So I'll right click now, and then I'm going to say trim comp to work area. So now what it has just done is that it has removed the excess work area that I don't need anymore. All right. So now that I have done this, let's just quickly add one more element to what we have on the screen right now. So I'm going to create one, and then you can create the others. So now I'm going to make use of the pen tool. So what I want to do now is to go to the rating composition. You can actually do it within the agency rating composition, but I want the agency rating composition to remain clean by having just one single layer. So I want to do it within the rating composition. All right. So now inside the rating composition, I'll click on the pen tool. So go to the layer menu, then click on new and then solid. So we want to be able to have more properties to work with. That's why we have to create a solid layer first. So now let me quickly change it to a gray color so it doesn't interfere with what we have on the screen. So I'll press OK. And then I'm going to quickly draw on this solid layer that we have now while I still have the pen tool selected. So I'll click somewhere around here. Then I'm going to make the second click and make sure while I click the second time, I don't remove my hand from the mouse, and then I'm going to move the mouse around to make sure that what I have created is coiled. Okay, so I'm going to do the third one and make sure that it is also coiled, so you can make it look the way you want. It depends on what you want to achieve, and I'm going to leave it that way. So I'll click on the selection tool. Now I can make adjustment to what I have just created. I can extend the length, I can reduce it, I can do what I want to it, I can move the points around depending on what I want to achieve. So at this point, this is what I want, just this way, and I'm going to twist it a little bit. All right. So now that I have this, I want to quickly apply an effect on this line that I've created with the pen tool. So I'll go to make sure that the solid layer we have created is still selected. Then go to Effect, Generate, and then select Stroke. So if you cannot quickly find the effect you want by going to the effect menu. Then you should go to the effect panel. So now you can see the effect panel down here. If you can't see it, then you should go to window and then click on effect and preset. All right, so this is it. So you can type stroke to quickly search for stroke, and it's going to be under generate. So now I'm going to double click or click and drag to drop on this solid layer. All right, so now that I have the effect on the solid layer, I'm going to first of all change the paint style and make sure that it is on transparent. All right, so now I'm going to increase the brush size a little bit. Then I'm going to quickly turn off the mask part so we can see what we are doing. So click on this to turn off mask part. All right, so now that I have this on, I'm going to quickly put it into motion. So what I'm going to do is at the beginning of the solid layer, I'm going to either go to the effect properties from the effect controls panel, or go to the effect properties under the solid layer, and then you can see effects, then stroke, and then I'm going to turn on the stopwatch to set keyframe. So I'm going to turn on the stopwatch for start. Okay, so now I'm going to move forward like 5 frames by setting it around here, and I'm going to set this to 505. Okay, so that's 5 frames. So I'm going to set another keyframe. Then I'll go to the first keyframe and I'm going to increase the start to 100%. Okay, so now what I want to have is to play back and make sure that it looks something like this. All right, now the other thing I want to do is to make sure that once this line is drawn on the screen, it's also quickly removed from the screen. So how do I achieve this? Now there's another property under the effect stroke property that you can also make use to achieve this. So I'll make sure that at the point, the keyframe where the line is totally revealed, I'm going to toggle on the stopwatch for end. Then I'm going to go 5 frames forward again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then I'm going to set another keyframe and I'm going to adjust the end value and make sure it goes back to 0. All right. So now if I play back, that's what I have. So I'm going to duplicate this one more time, and then I'm going to stop somewhere around here. Let me just review the keyframes on this solid layer by pressing U on the keyboard, and I think at the last keyframe I am okay, or somewhere around here. So I'm going to slice this layer into 2 by pressing Shift Command D on the keyboard or Shift Control D on Windows keyboard. All right, so I don't need this part anymore. I'm going to delete it. So now I want to quickly duplicate this line that I have created here, and I want to also make sure that if I play this line from beginning to the end of it, it doesn't start from here and end here. I want to make sure it starts from here and end at the top. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this layer, then I'm going to move it forward a little bit, just somewhere around there, so that they don't play at the same time. And I am going to also make sure that I move this somewhere around here, just like this. So you can see that I still have 2. Okay, but at that time I want to make sure that this is played backwards. Okay, I want to make sure that this other one is played backward. It doesn't play from top to bottom. I want to make sure that it is revealed from bottom to the top. So how do I achieve this? That's the last thing we want to take a look at today. So if you want to achieve that, you have to right click on that layer, and then you go to time, and then you click on, make sure you click on time reverse layer. Okay, so now look at what we have achieved. You can see that one played to the top and the other played to the bottom. So I'm going to press space bar now to play back. You can see. All right, so that's what we have achieved now. So if we also want to make sure that at the end of our animation, that all of this text is not staying too long on the screen, we want them to follow the same animation that we used earlier to bring it to the screen, I'm going to go back to the agency rating composition to achieve this. So what I'm going to do is to come somewhere around here. Let me play back first. Then at this point, I want to make sure that I slice this layer into two. Then I'm going to also use the time reverse layer to make sure that this composition played back again the way it came in. If you don't understand what I'm saying, let me quickly do it and then you will see. So I'm going to do the time reverse layer on the duplicate that I have here. Let me reduce it a little bit. All right. Then I'm going to quickly select the time reverse layer on it. All right. So I'll take it somewhere around here, then play back. All right. So now our animation was played and it's displayed on the screen, and then it's also taken away from the screen. What I have just done, instead of us to start setting keyframe for this animation to also leave the screen, I tried to reverse what we have done here by just a single click. Okay. So let's check the scale layer and then make sure that we don't have a duplicate layer. All right. So now let me play back what we have done. And I want to quickly trim the work area to where the animation stopped. So I'm going to bring the work area end to where the blue line is right now, and I'm going to trim. Okay. So I'm going to place my mouse on here and then right click to click on trim to work area. So right now all the excess part of the timeline is gone. So if I take it to the beginning now, we have about 3 seconds plus of animation. So we have come to the end of the class today, and by next week, which is the last class of Adobe After Effects, we are going to be reviewing all that we have done in Adobe After Effects, all of the motion graphics design knowledge that we have gained from beginning of the class to the end of the class. We are going to review it, and then we are going to also have to do a final project that will help us to understand more about Adobe After Effects and using it for motion graphics design.